Transpiration. Transpiration is the process by which plants lose water in the form of water vapor into the atmosphere. The loss occurs at the stomata, cuticle and the lenticels of plants in processes known as stomatal, cuticular and lenticular transpiration respectively. Stomatal transpiration is the loss of water through the stomata. It accounts for 80 to 90% of total transpiration in plants. Most stomata are found on the leaves, but may also occur on the epidermis of young herbaceous stems. Cuticular transpiration is the loss of water in the form of water vapor through the cuticle. The cuticle is a waxy, protective layer covering the epidermis of plant leaves and other aerial parts. Cuticular transpiration accounts for up to 20% of total transpiration. In plants with thick cuticles, the loss is negligible. Lenticular transpiration is the loss of water in plants as water vapor through the lenticels. Lenticels are small, spongy openings or pores in the bark of woody plants. They are typically found on stems, branches, and roots. They allow for gaseous exchange between the internal tissues of the plant and the external environment. The loss of water through the lenticels is negligible. How water is lost through the stomata. The stoma opens into the substomatal air spaces that are lined with spongy mesophyll cells. As water vaporizes from the spongy mesophyll cells into the substomatal air spaces, their cell sap becomes more concentrated than the adjacent cells. This increases the osmotic pressure of these spongy mesophyll cells. As a result, water flows into these cells from other surrounding cells, which in turn take in water from xylem vessels within the leaf veins. Water lost through the leaf comes into the leaf through the xylem in the leaf, which is in continuous connection with the xylem of the stem and that of the root. Forces involved in transportation of water and mineral salts. As water evaporates from plants, more is absorbed from the soil. This forms a continuous stream of water flowing from the roots up the stem to the evaporating surface. This continuous flow of water is known as the transpiration stream. The transpiration stream carries water and salts in solution form from the roots to the leaves. This flow takes place in the xylem tissues. The forces behind this continuous flow of water and mineral ions through the plant are: transpiration pull, cohesion and adhesion forces, capillarity and root pressure. Transpiration pull. As water vaporizes from the spongy mesophyll cells into the substomatal air spaces, their cell sap becomes more concentrated than adjacent cells. This change increases the osmotic pressure of the spongy mesophyll cells. As a result, water flows into these cells from the surrounding cells, which in turn take in water from xylem vessels within the leaf veins. These developments create a pull or suction force that pull a stream of water from the xylem vessels in the stem and roots. This force is referred to as transpiration pull, and it is the force that partly maintains the continuous column of water from the roots to the leaves. This is important in the replacement of water lost from the plant through transpiration. Cohesion and adhesion forces. Water molecules attract one another in such a way that they always stick together. The force that keeps the water molecules together is referred to as cohesion. The cohesion force is very important in maintenance of a continuous and an uninterrupted water column in the xylem up the plant. At the same time, water molecules are attracted to the walls of the xylem vessels in which the water is contained by a force referred to as adhesion. The cohesive and adhesive forces in very thin columns can be very high and not easily broken. Capillarity. It is the ability of water to move upward through narrow tubes, like the xylem vessels in plants, against gravity due to the combined effects of cohesion, adhesion, and surface tension. If an open-ended tube is placed vertically with one end immersed in water, the liquid will rise in the tube until the weight of the water column balances the attraction forces operating between the water and the walls of the tube. The narrower the tube, the higher the liquid will rise. In the xylem vessels, water would rise to some extent because the vessels are so narrow. Root pressure. If you cut the stem of a plant above the soil level, the cell sap continues to exude from the cut surface of the stump for some time. This shows that there is a force in the roots that pushes water up the stem. This force is known as root pressure and can be considerably high in some plants. Root pressure may be attributed to the active pumping of water across the endodermis to the xylem vessels. Energy is essential in this process. Respiratory inhibitors such as cyanide reduce root pressure. Factors affecting the rate of transpiration. Factors that affect the rate of transpiration can be grouped into structural and environmental. The structural factors are related to the morphology of the leaf and include the following. Cuticle. Plants growing in arid or semi-arid habitats have their leaves covered with a thick layer of cuticle. The cuticle is a waxy waterproof material. The cuticle reduces the rate of transpiration. This may be seen in plants such as sisal, cactus, and aloe. Plants growing in wet habitats have a problem of containing too much water in their tissues. Such plants have no cuticle or have a very thin layer of cuticle on their leaves. The thin cuticle allows high rates of transpiration as a means of getting rid of excess water. Leaf size and shape. The rate of transpiration is high in plants with broad leaves. The broadleaf exposes a large surface area for water loss as compared to the plants with small and sometimes needle-like leaves. Therefore, plants growing in habitats where water is scarce usually have leaves with small surface area to minimize transpiration. Stomata. Since transpiration takes place mainly through the stomata in leaves, their position in the leaf, number and size of the aperture are very important as far as transpiration is concerned. Most land plants have few or no stomata on the upper leaf surfaces, but have many on the lower surface. In desert plants, the number of stomata on the leaves is greatly reduced. Some have sunken stomata below the epidermis. Water vapor tends to accumulate in these pits, thus reducing transpiration. Many plants close their stomata if the rate of transpiration is higher than that of water uptake. Plants will close their stomata on a hot, dry, sunny day to lower the rate of transpiration. This phenomenon, known as midday closure, protects the plants from wilting. Some desert plants have reverse stomatal rhythm, closing stomata during the day and opening during the night when the atmosphere is cool. Such mechanism helps them to conserve water in their tissues. Hairy leaves. In some plants, leaves are covered with hairs. These hairs trap a layer of still moist air on the surface of the leaves, thus reducing transpiration. Glossy leaf surfaces. Glossy leaf surfaces reflect light landing on the leaf surface, hence reduce the internal heating of the leaf and stomatal opening, thereby reducing the rate of transpiration. Environmental factors affecting transpiration are related to the environmental conditions and include temperature. High temperature increases the capacity of the atmospheric air to hold more water vapor. High temperature increases the internal temperature of the leaf, which in turn increases the latent heat of vaporization and therefore enhances evaporation from the leaf cells. In low temperature, the rate of transpiration is reduced. Humidity. The rate of transpiration is generally high in dry atmosphere due to high concentration of water vapor in the intercellular air spaces than in the dry atmosphere. This causes water vapor to diffuse out of the leaf into the dry atmosphere. The humidity difference between the inside and the outside of the leaf is known as saturation deficit, and it determines the rate of water loss from the leaf. In a dry atmosphere, the saturation deficit is high. Consequently, the rate of transpiration is high. On the other hand, in high humidity, the saturation deficit is low and therefore the rate of transpiration is low. Under such conditions, some plants secrete droplets of water through specialized pores called hydrothodes. This process of water loss is called guttation and is common in hydrophytes, plants growing in wet habitats. Wind. On a windy day, the rate of transpiration is high. This is because the wind carries water vapor on the leaf surface, increasing the saturation deficit, thus the rate of transpiration is increased. On a less windy day, the air around the leaf surface becomes more humid. This decreases the saturation deficit, thus decreasing the rate of transpiration. The effects of wind intensity on the rate of transpiration can be demonstrated using the graph shown. Light intensity. Light intensity affects transpiration rate by influencing stomatal opening. The stomata of most plants open fully in daylight when light intensity is high. This brings the substomatal air into direct contact with the external environment. The water vapor therefore diffuses out at a higher rate than in dim light when the stomata are partially closed. It is important to note that in a natural setting, these factors do not influence transpiration in isolation. Atmospheric pressure. The lower the atmospheric pressure, the greater the rate of evaporation from a surface. Plants found at high altitudes where atmospheric pressure is very low are likely to lose a lot of water. Most of them have adaptations to prevent excessive water loss. Availability of water. Transpiration depends on the walls of the mesophyll cells being thoroughly wet. A plant must therefore have adequate water supply from the soil. Significance of transpiration. Transpiration makes the plant lose water. If unchecked, transpiration may cause wilting, desiccation, or even the death of the plant. However, transpiration has some beneficial effects on the plants as follows. Through the process, mineral ions and water are transported in the plant. It serves to cool the plants, as significant factors especially in hot environments. It removes excess water especially in aquatic plants. It is responsible for turgor in plants. Thank you for watching this biology lesson. Please subscribe to this channel and other Genius channels relevant to your level of study.